Hello and welcome to this GarrettCom Training presentation on managing Telnet sessions at the CLI. We are logged into the command line interface here. What I wanted to do is go into the access mode, and from here we can have various options for controlling access to the switch via SSH, via Telnet, via SNMP. We can allow, we can deny, we've got all sorts of things we can change or tweak. What I want to do is focus on Telnet here. And we can enable or disable Telnet with this simple command here. So Telnet followed by enable or disable Telnet. Typically you would do this if you purchase a secure software, if it was a secure environment and you had a requirement where you only allowed SSH connections to the switch. You could then enable SSH and disable Telnet by going Telnet and then disable. We're going to leave that here for now. If you want to check that verify that your changes have taken place, you can go show console, and it shows you the settings. For example, is Telnet enabled? Yes, it is. Can I come in? Can I come out? Here we can see the whether or not Telnet's enabled or disabled. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So it's Telnet disabled, and then go show console again, and we can see that our inbound Telnet has been prevented. Okay. If we want to go Telnet enabled, we can reverse that change, and we can see that change has taken effect here as well. If you want to Telnet to another switch, we can do that as well. Let me briefly connect up the second switch to this switch, set an IP address on it, and then we can go ahead and Telnet to it. So bear with me one moment, I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so just quickly jumped on over to another switch I've got next to the 6K32T, which is a 6K25E, which is sitting directly below it, and I've set an IP address on that switch, and what we can do now is just check that we can get there. So ping 192.168.10.1 is our address, and then the other switch's address is 1.2. Let's just see, yep, this is fine. So if we go to Telnet now, we can actually Telnet to that switch from the command line of this first switch. And here we are, we can log in. Now, you need to be careful when you Telnet from one switch to another. Okay, so the switch can handle 4 inbound concurrent Telnet sessions. So 4 people can log into the same switch at the same time. Now those sessions for those different users, those different login sessions, are handled in a round-robin fashion. So you enter a command, and then the other user gets to enter his command, and so on and so forth. Now when one user is entering a command, then that command has to finish executing before the next user gets his turn. So if it's a long command, if he's copying a file, for example, that can cause delays. What's particularly important is that if one user decides to Telnet from one switch to another switch, then anybody else who's Telnetted into that switch has to wait for that Telnet session to end before they get accessed. So if you're going to have multiple users logging into the switch at the same time, then it's recommended that you don't Telnet from one switch to the next, because it means you log out, you basically freeze out the other users. If, however, you're the only person logged into the switch at a time, you can Telnet as you like, no problem at all. It's when you have multiple users all logged in at the same time, which is normally pretty unlikely anyway, because it deals with it in a round-robin fashion. You can starve the other users off. So if we log out, we come back to the original switch. Bear with me just one moment. Come on. Here we are. So we were logged into the 25E, now we come back to the 32T. So during that period, if anybody else was connected to the switch at the same time, which, as I said, is fairly unlikely, then the Telnet session would have to end before the other users could get access to the command line. So that's one thing to look out for, but generally it's a very rare occurrence anyway. But one thing to note, you can also, when you Telnet, you can also specify the IP address, and you can also specify the port number as well if you wanted to. So if you were Telnet into a different port other than 23, which is the default, then you can specify that as well. You can also show the sessions to see who's currently logged in to the switch. So if I was to log in again, then that would you would see that as well there. So show sessions shows you who's logged into the switch, and I think that covers if you want to kill a particular session, you can do. So what I might do is log in again with another putty session. Let's fire that up here, and I'm going to Telnet to 192.168.10.1, and here manager and then manager, and if I go back to here and then go show sessions, show session, here we can see I'm logged in via the console connection serial, and I've just logged in as well via the manager. Now if I want to kick him off, just to prove that he's still there, if I go show config, blah blah blah, I'm still there. If I want to kill session question mark session ID, you can see here the IDs are to the left. Session ID equals 2. I can do that. If I come back to my other session, I think it might have gone, bear with me, see it's killed it off, it's kicked it off completely. So that's how to see who else is logged into the switch and to kill off people if they shouldn't be there. Pretty much the basic stuff, nothing too complicated, just a one caveat to look out for if you are having lots of users coming in at the same time, which is it's very unlikely and doesn't normally happen, but just be careful that if somebody's telnetting, then that telnet session has to finish first before other users can use the switch. Otherwise it's dealt with in a round robin fashion, whereby again if someone is hogging the switch on their turn, then that's live. So but if you want to kick somebody off, you can do. And that completes managing telnet sessions. So I hope this has been interesting, I hope it's been helpful, and on behalf of GarrettCom, I'd like to thank you for your time. Goodbye.